Hello and welcome back to the Casual Fanatic. Today we continue the series Three Key Men. Today's team, Leicester City. Now, this is a team that might be at an unfortunate timing in the season that I'm doing this video, and as you'll see now with the Southampton video that's coming up, is like these teams might be getting relegated, and I'm recommending transfers, which is the third part of Three Key Men, and they might not be staying in the league. So that definitely changes the transfer policy. Probably means they get rid of some of the players. Probably some of the guys I'm going to mention as the most important and the most promising and probably end up leaving, and then the recommended changes. But let's go on the pretense that they're staying. Because low-key, some of these videos in the series should have probably been done earlier, but I got excited, I wanted to do other videos, and now we're at the point where I just got to get the 3 Key series men done for this season before the season ends, and then we can move on to making maybe a new part for the new season, or doing it over the summer again in a different way, with maybe just doing 3 recommended signings rather than 3 key men. So for the 3 key men for Leicester, now going into the most important player, you asked it a couple of seasons ago, you might have a contrasting answer. You might be able to argue a Tielemans, a Bardi, Schmeichel, but it's one person this season. That's James Maddison. James Maddison is their set piece taker. He's their driving creative force. He's one of the only other player that's a solid ball carrier for them is the guy who's I've listed as the most promising. He's their top he has second most goals scored from the season, and has the most assists, 10 and 9. He's really been incredible for them considering the level of season they had. He got the England call-up. Yes, he wasn't fit and wasn't able to get any real minutes at the World Cup, but nevertheless, he was there. He did make it to the squad, and that's fair. And now they're talking about selling him for 40-50 million. I don't see the idea behind it, because any team he would move to is probably going to be a backup. If he does end up staying up with Leicester, and if they do have the funds to strengthen certain positions, I don't think Leicester's a team, and that's why I also predicted them to start moving up the table. I don't see them being a team that's going to struggle for relegation again next year. Now, it of course depends on who departures and whether they even stay up this year, because it doesn't look very good for them, especially yesterday I was watching the Fulham Leicester game, and it's been the same thing that we've seen all season. Leicester can score, they can create chances, and they have some talented players, but they cannot stop themselves from conceding again and again and again. They have not kept a clean sheet since the World Cup break. They've conceded every game. You're not going to get anywhere. And especially when you're down there in the relegation fights, you cannot be having a leaky defense. You've seen any team, all of the teams around there have struggled to keep clean sheets. But the teams that are also in the relegation were West Ham, Wolves, and what did they end up doing? They had a much more solid defensive structure. They moved up the table. Now, going to the most promising, Leicester don't really have any promising young players. Now, I did think about doing it by default, as their only young players being either Christensen or Luke Thomas, both left backs, but none of that convincing, and I wouldn't call either of them very promising. Now, I said maybe because I've done this for a previous team as well, making that age cutoff for a promising player being a little bit higher, because I see something that can develop into you don't have to say star, but a leading figure in the team. And that's why I went for James Maddison. He's not too far ahead of the age profile. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure he's 25 still. Yes, Harvey Barnes still 25. Gives him some time still to develop his progressive carries. He has the most goals for Leicester this season. And you see that there is some decent ball striking there. There is some 1v1 decent decision making. I still think he has to improve on that, because his take on percentage is among the worst. I think he's at 28% take on percentage. It's not good enough, and it really needs improvement if they are going to have him as a long-term option there. Now, the level they're at, he's definitely at a point where this is good enough to be a mid-table Premier League team. I think he's good enough to be that level of winger. I do think they're going to have to find a solution for the right side. Tete looked interesting in the first couple of games. He's tailored off a little bit. Maybe needs time to transition under a proper manager, proper system in place. Maddison as the creative force centrally, because you see it whenever he comes centrally, he's so much more impactful. And creating more chances for Vardy and Iheanacho. And Iheanacho was the other one I was thinking about doing for most promising, but the injuries have just killed a lot of his career. He can't stay fit. He doesn't seem to have the right structure behind him for him to succeed at the highest level. That's why I don't think he can be my most promising player. I went with Barnes, and I feel like that's fair. The reason why these segments are going to be a little bit shorter, I want to try and see if I can make this into a shorter format like I did for my first couple of videos in the 3 key series, and maybe that helps out in terms of the analytics for this. So my recommended signing, I'll get into it. It's going to be a center back. There's no question about that. They need fullbacks, they need center backs, and they need a keeper. I had to choose one, so I chose a center back. Now, I was stuck between going for, maybe I go for someone younger, so I go for like Lukeba, or I go for Todibo, or I go for, I thought about Tapsoba. Not that I really like Tapsoba that much, actually. I've watched him quite a few times now for Leverkusen, and it's not the player I love. But I thought about, let's go for somewhere where I just saw today that apparently we're talking 20, 30 mil for a center back that is rated much higher than that. Like, he is highly rated. And I think that he might struggle to get a move a little bit higher up the league, because a lot of teams seem settled in their centre backs, especially further up. Like, Chelsea have a plethora of centre backs, United have centre backs, City, Arsenal, and Liverpool all have centre backs. So maybe he ends up dropping a little bit further down. Now, I do think this might be a signing that we see go to Aston Villa. That player is Pau Torres. Now, Pau Torres is a fantastic centre back, playing out the back. He's composed on the ball. He reads the game well. And you could see it by, like, on FB ref, he has 95th percentile in progressive passes, 98th percentile in progressive carries, 97th percentile in successful take-ons, and then he also has 72 percentile in clearances. He's a very solid centre back. The thing is that we're going to fall a problem with Leicester is he's 6'3", which means, and he is a little bit on the slower side, which means they are going to have to play deeper. But I think going back to their roots of playing on that transition game, playing that counter-attacking football, I think is going to be their best avenue, at least next season, until they can replace that midfield and the rest of the defense, which is probably going to take a window or two. Now, while they do that, going back to being more structurally solid, and I think Pau Torres would be a great player to play off of that. He'd be able to trigger these transitional plays with his switches, with his long balls. And I think that's why Pau Torres would be fantastic for him. And also, it's a left-footed centre-back, which is a great profile to have. Him played alongside the Johnny Evans in a deeper line would be fantastic. I think Johnny Evans has been a big miss for them all season. And I think this would be a great signing that would be slightly realistic, so long as they stay in the Premier League. And so long as they don't have the same issue that they had last year, which is they had no budget whatsoever. If not, they're going to have to start looking into some loan options, some older players, and that might make it more difficult. But I think the main thing that they need to address is this is more of a structure problem, and also, of course, it's a talent and profile problem. But whoever comes in as this coach that's going to be permanent is going to need to have a big job. Whether it's Dean Smith or not, he's going to have a big job in his hands to create a system that works for Leicester again. They cannot be this open, they cannot be this exposed as they've been this season. That's if they even survive. This has been 3 Key Men, Leicester City. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.